If you remember Coke changing its taste and your friend's Betamax player has VHS tapes, welcome home. You grew up when bad products failed in front of everyone, not quietly online.
And the incredible clarity of CD sound. It makes movies, music, and concerts truly come to life.
These failures became the stories your whole neighborhood talked about. Let's remember 25 products from the 1980s that failed bigger than you think. The 1985 new Coke wasn't just reformulation, it was a market research failure when Coca-Cola needed competitive edge, and changing the 99-year-old recipe meant public outrage, forcing the return of the original formula within 79 days. Executives didn't need social media to know what backlash meant. They conducted blind taste tests, showing people preferred sweeter new Coke over Original and Pepsi, approved the formula change, pulled Original Coke from stores on April 23, 1985, and watched protests erupt nationwide. Customers hoarded old Coke. Protest hotlines received 8,000 angry calls daily. Coca-Cola brought back the original formula as Coca-Cola Classic on July 11, 1985. Failure was immediate and public. New Coke development cost $4 million. Marketing cost $10 million. Taste tests involved 200,000 people. But tests measured taste, not emotional attachment to the brand. Loyal customers felt betrayed. "Give us back our Coke" became a national movement. By July 1985, Original Coke returned. New Coke was rebranded Coke 2 and discontinued in 2002. Modern product launches didn't improve. They just moved failures online where they're deleted from history faster, and a quiet business lesson about brand loyalty was lost. The 1983 Betamax VCR wasn't just video recorder. It was superior technology that lost when Sony needed market dominance, and better picture quality couldn't compete against VHS's longer recording time and cheaper licensing. Consumers didn't need technical specs to know what mattered. They compared Betamax, which recorded 1 hour on early tapes with better resolution, against VHS, which recorded 2 hours and later 6 hours with slightly worse quality. Betamax cost $2,300. VHS cost $800. Video rental stores stocked VHS because tape length allowed full movies on one cassette. Betamax required tape flips for long films. Sony lost through strategic mistakes. Betamax had better quality but shorter recording time. Sony refused to license the format widely, while JVC licensed VHS to multiple manufacturers. By 1987, VHS held 95% market share. Sony admitted defeat and began making VHS players. By 1988, Betamax was obsolete. Sony discontinued production in 2002. Modern format wars didn't change. Blu-ray beat HD DVD the same way, and streaming eliminated physical formats entirely, erasing the lesson that technical superiority doesn't guarantee market success. The 1984 Laserdisc player wasn't just video format, it was premium quality when families needed movies, and superior picture quality couldn't overcome $800 player costs and $40 per movie disc prices compared to $5 VHS rentals. Early adopters didn't need market research to know what luxury meant. They paid $800 for a Laserdisc player, bought movies on 12-inch discs costing $30 to $50 each, and enjoyed better picture and sound quality than VHS. But discs couldn't be recorded on at home, required flipping mid-movie, and skipped when players got dirty. Laserdisc was niche and expensive. Players cost 3x more than VCRs. Movie discs cost 8x more than VHS tapes. Rental stores stocked VHS because tapes were cheaper and sturdier. Laserdisc appealed to videophiles and collectors, not mass-market families. By 1990, VHS dominated. Laserdisc production stopped in 2001. Modern streaming didn't learn. Early adopters still pay premiums for 4K when HD suffices for most viewers, proving technology enthusiasts repeatedly pay for quality improvements mainstream consumers ignore. Did anyone you know actually own a Laserdisc player? What did they do with all those giant discs? The 1983 Apple. Lisa wasn't just computer. It was overpriced innovation when businesses needed word processors and graphical user interfaces a decade ahead of their time, couldn't justify $10,000 price tags when IBM PCs cost $3,000. Offices didn't need mouse-driven interfaces to know what value meant. They evaluated the Lisa with its GUI, mouse, and icon-based system, compared it to command-line IBM PCs and Apple and II-2s, and chose cheaper options. Lisa cost $10,000. Software was limited. It was slow despite innovation. Businesses bought IBM clones at one-third the price. Lisa failed commercially despite technical advances. Development cost Apple $50 million. Only 10,000 units sold in 2 years. The GUI innovations later appeared in Macintosh for $2,500, which succeeded. Lisa was discontinued in 1985, and unsold inventory was buried in a Utah landfill in 1989. By 1986, Lisa was forgotten. Macintosh adopted its innovations at affordable prices. Modern tech didn't learn. Companies still launch premium products priced beyond mainstream reach, wondering why innovation alone doesn't guarantee sales. The 1980 Ford Edsel remnants weren't just old cars. They were legendary failures still on roads when used car buyers needed cheap vehicles, and the infamous 1958-1960 flop's reputation followed owners into the 1980s as a punchline. Buyers didn't need history lessons to know what Edsel meant. They saw used Edsels in classified ads priced cheaply because the name carried stigma. The original 1958-1960 Edsel line lost Ford $350 million, equivalent to $3 billion today, due to ugly design, mechanical problems, and recession timing. By the 1980s, remaining Edsels were collector curiosities, not respected classics. The name became synonymous with failure. Marketing textbooks studied Edsel as the ultimate flop. Pop culture used Edsel to mean any doomed product. Owners in the 1980s drove cars everyone laughed at. Parts were scarce. Resale value was nothing. By 1990, most Edsels had been scrapped. Today, survivors are collectible, ironically. Modern product failures don't get the same treatment. They're just deleted from corporate websites and forgotten, removing public lessons about failure's permanence. 5. 1980s flops down. Notice the pattern? Every product, new Coke that customers rejected, Betamax that lost despite quality, Laserdisc that cost too much, Lisa that nobody bought, Edsel that became a punchline, failed publicly and permanently. By 1990, failed products were forgotten but documented. 20 flops remain, and each proves you've been lied to about failure's lessons. New Coke taught that loyalty beats taste. Today, brands just rebrand and hope you forget. The value wasn't in success. It was in learning from public failure. And they erased that so you'd never study mistakes. The 1992 Crystal Pepsi wasn't just clear soda. It was marketing gimmick when PepsiCo needed differentiation and removing caramel coloring while keeping the same taste, confused consumers who expected clear drinks to taste like Sprite. Shoppers didn't need explanations to know what clear meant. They saw Crystal Pepsi on shelves in clear bottles, assumed it would taste different from brown Pepsi, bought it once, tasted regular Pepsi flavor in clear liquid, and felt deceived. The cognitive dissonance between appearance and taste created rejection. Sales dropped after initial curiosity purchases. Crystal Pepsi was novelty without purpose. Development and launch cost $40 million. TV ads featured Van Halen's Right Now and positioned it as pure and clean. But clear didn't make it healthier. It was still full sugar soda. Customers wanted clear drinks to taste citrusy like 7 Up, not like cola. Tab Clear, Coca-Cola's competitive response, was intentionally bad to make all clear colas seem like diet products, poisoning the category. Crystal Pepsi was discontinued in 1993 after 1 year. PepsiCo brought it back briefly in 2016 as a nostalgia, proving failed products can return as ironic collectibles. By 1994, Crystal Pepsi was a punchline. Modern beverage launches didn't improve. They still confuse novelty with value, and consumers still reject products that don't match expectations. The 1991 McLean Deluxe wasn't just healthier burger. It was misguided attempt when McDonald's needed health-conscious options and replacing beef fat with carrageenan, seaweed extract, created a dry, flavorless patty nobody wanted. Customers didn't need nutrition labels to know what taste meant. They ordered the McLean Deluxe, advertised as 91% fat-free, bit into a burger that was dry and rubbery because seaweed filler replaced fat, and never ordered it again. Fat carries flavor. Removing it made burgers taste like cardboard. The McLean cost the same as a quarter-pounder, but delivered less satisfaction. McDonald's spent $70 million developing and marketing the McLean. Ads emphasized health benefits. Nutritionists praised it, but fast food customers didn't go to McDonald's for health food. They went for indulgence. People who wanted healthy food didn't trust McDonald's to provide it. People who wanted McDonald's wanted the real thing. The McLean Deluxe was discontinued in 1996 after 5 years of poor sales. McDonald's learned that health positioning contradicted brand identity. Attempts to make fast food healthy repeatedly fail because customers choose fast food for convenience and taste, not nutrition. By 2000, McDonald's abandoned health burgers. Modern fast food didn't learn. Burger King's Satisfreeze, low-fat fries, flopped in 2013, proving the lesson repeats every generation. Did you ever try the McLean Deluxe? How bad did it taste compared to a real burger? The 1983 Coleco Adam wasn't just home computer. It was catastrophic hardware flaw when families needed computing, and the built-in printer's electromagnetic field erased data from any floppy disks placed near it. Buyers didn't need technical knowledge to know what data loss meant. They brought home a Coleco Adam bundled with a daisy wheel printer, set it up, saved files to floppy disks, stored disks near the printer, and discovered days later that files were gone. The printer's electromagnets demagnetized disks within 12 inches. Customers lost family budgets, homework, and business records. Coleco rushed the Adam to market without adequate testing. It cost $600. Competitive with Commodore 64 and Apple IIe. Early units had 50% return rates due to hardware failures. The printer disk erasure problem became national news. Retailers stopped stocking it. Coleco issued warnings to keep disks away from the printer, admitting the design flaw. The Adam was discontinued in 1985 after 2 years. Coleco lost $35 million on it. The company, famous for Cabbage Patch Kids dolls, declared bankruptcy in 1988, partly due to Adam's failure. By 1986, the Adam was a cautionary tale. Modern tech launches didn't eliminate hardware flaws. Samsung Galaxy Note 7 caught fire in 2016, proving that rushing products still creates disasters despite decades of lessons. The 1982 Atari E.T. game wasn't just bad, it was industry-killing disaster when Atari needed a blockbuster holiday title, and rushing a game into production in 5 weeks created an unplayable mess that crashed the entire video game market. Kids didn't need reviews to know what terrible meant. They received E.T. as the premium Christmas gift in 1982, loaded it into their Atari 2600 consoles with excitement about playing as their favorite alien, spent 30 minutes falling into identical-looking pits repeatedly with no clear objective or instructions, tried random actions hoping something would work, and never played it again after the first frustrating hour. The game was confusing, frustrating, and boring simultaneously, a trifecta of failure. Players controlled E.T., wandering through screens looking for telephone pieces to phone home, but the gameplay consisted mostly of falling into unmarked pits, slowly levitating out, then immediately falling into another pit. The 1985 Yugo GV wasn't just affordable car, it was quality disaster when Americans needed cheap transportation, and the $3,190 price tag couldn't compensate for cars that broke down within weeks of purchase and became national punchlines. Buyers didn't need mechanics to know what unreliable meant. They bought Yugos because they were the cheapest new cars in America, half the price of a Honda Civic, drove them off the lot with temporary tags still taped to windows, and experienced catastrophic failures within months or even weeks. Windows fell into doors mid-drive and couldn't be retrieved without removing door panels. Electrical systems died randomly, leaving drivers stranded in parking lots. Engines overheated in normal traffic. Transmissions failed before 20,000 miles. Carburetors flooded constantly. Windshield wipers stopped mid-storm. Heating systems blew cold air in winter. Parts were nearly impossible to find because no American mechanics stocked Yugoslavian components. Repairs often cost more than the car's entire resale value, which plummeted to under $500 within 2 years of ownership. The Yugo was a rebranded Zastava Coral from communist Yugoslavia with minimal modifications to meet U.S. safety standards, and even those modifications were inadequate. Build quality was abysmal. Panel gaps you could fit fingers through, paint that chipped from car washes, interior plastics that cracked from sunlight. Safety ratings were terrible, no airbags, weak crash structures, brakes that faded under normal use. The 1984 IBM PC-JR wasn't just home computer, it was underpowered mistake when IBM needed consumer market success and cutting costs to hit lower price points, created a machine with a terrible keyboard, weak specs, and high price that nobody wanted. Families didn't need computing knowledge to know what cheap felt like. They tested the PC-JR in stores, pressed keys on the infamous chiclet keyboard that felt like calculator buttons with mushy travel and no tactile feedback, heard the weak clicking response that signaled toy rather than tool, compared specs to Commodore 64 and Apple II, sitting on adjacent shelves, and walked away shaking their heads. The PC-JR cost $100 to $300 for a usable configuration, but had less memory, slower processing, and fewer capabilities than competitors costing $600. The math didn't work. Parents couldn't justify spending double for inferior performance just to get the IBM logo. IBM designed the PC-JR as a cheaper home version of the successful IBM PC, but deliberately crippled it to avoid cannibalizing business PC sales, classic market segmentation gone wrong. It shipped with only 64K bytes of memory when 128KB was standard. It had incompatibility with most IBM PC software, despite the branding suggesting compatibility. The infrared wireless keyboard didn't work reliably. Signals dropped if you weren't pointing directly at the receiver. Cartridge slots on the front suggested toy console rather than serious computer. The keyboard was universally mocked in reviews. Typing felt mushy and imprecise, with keys that wiggled and bottomed out with unsatisfying mushiness. Touch typists hated it immediately. IBM spent $40 million marketing the PCJer with Charlie Chaplin advertisements showing families using the computer for homework and entertainment. Sales were disastrous. Fewer than 250,000 units sold total. IBM discontinued the PCJR in 1985 after only 18 months, taking massive losses. The failure taught IBM that consumers wouldn't buy deliberately weakened products at premium prices just for brand prestige. The 1974 Gerber Singles wasn't just adult food, it was brand confusion disaster when Gerber needed growth beyond baby products and packaging adult meals in baby food jars, with baby food branding made consumers think they were eating pureed infant food. Singles shoppers didn't need marketing analysis to know what jars meant. They saw Gerber Singles in grocery stores, small glass jars identical to baby food jars containing adult meals like beef burgundy, Mediterranean vegetables, and creamed beef, and assumed it was baby food marketed to adults as some kind of joke or mistake. The cognitive dissonance was immediate and visceral. Why would adults eat from baby food jars? The Gerber baby logo stared from every jar, the same cherubic infant face that appeared on strained peas and mashed carrots for 6-month-olds. Consumers felt infantilized picking up the jars. The association triggered disgust rather than appetite. Gerber positioned singles as convenient portion-controlled meals for single adults living alone who didn't want to cook full portions, but used existing baby food production lines and nearly identical jar packaging to save manufacturing costs. The meals tasted fine, actual adult recipes with normal seasoning and texture, not pured mush. But the visual association with baby food created psychological rejection. Singles sat on shelves unsold while baby food jars next to them sold normally. Retailers placed them in baby food aisles because they looked like baby food, reinforcing the confusion. Some stores put them in diet food sections because of the small portions, but that didn't help either. Single adults shopping for convenient meals walked past them without recognition. Gerber discontinued Singles within a year after disastrous sales. The product failed because packaging and brand identity were inseparable. 60 years of Gerber meaning baby food couldn't be overcome with slightly different labels. Gerber meant baby food in consumers' minds. The 1981 RCA Selectavision CED player wasn't just movie format, it was obsolete at launch technology when RCA needed home video and releasing a record-like disc system, the same year VCRs became affordable, doomed it immediately. Consumers didn't need technical comparisons to know what mattered. They evaluated CED players costing $500 that played movies on vinyl-like discs stored in protective caddies, compared them to VCRs costing $800 that recorded TV shows and played rented tapes, and chose VCRs every time. CED discs wore out after 500 plays from physical stylus contact, just like vinyl records. VHS tapes lasted thousands of plays with minimal degradation. CEDs couldn't record anything. VCRs could capture broadcast television, time-shift programs, and build personal libraries. CED players required inserting a caddy, waiting for the disc to load, then removing the caddy before playback started, a clumsy 3-step process. VHS meant inserting a tape and pressing play. RCA spent $750 million over 17 years developing CED technology, starting development in 1964, when the concept seemed revolutionary. By the time it launched in 1981, VCRs were mainstream and dropping in price rapidly. CED offered no advantages over any competitor. worse picture quality than Laserdisc, no recording capability like VCRs, discs that degraded from physical stylus contact like worn-out records, and a limited movie library compared to exploding VHS rental stores. It was a record player for movies, arriving a decade too late to matter. RCA executives had fallen victim to sunk cost fallacy, pushing forward with launch despite obvious market conditions because they'd invested so heavily in development. Only 500,000 CED players sold total, compared to millions of VCRs sold annually. RCA discontinued the format in 1984 after losing hundreds of millions of dollars. The failure contributed directly to RCA's financial decline and eventual sale to General Electric in 1986, ending one of America's most iconic electronics brands as an independent company. By 1986, CED was forgotten completely. Movie rental stores stocked 0 CED titles. By 1990, used CED players filled thrift stores at $10 each. Modern formats didn't eliminate timing failures. HD DVD lost to Blu-ray, partly because it launched at the wrong moment when digital streaming was emerging, proving that timing matters as much as technology, and being first means nothing if you're first to obsolete. The 1982 AM stereo radio wasn't just audio upgrade. It was standards war disaster when broadcasters needed better sound, and 5 competing incompatible AM stereo systems prevented industry adoption, killing the technology before it started. Listeners didn't need engineering degrees to know what confusion meant. They saw AM stereo radios in stores advertising stereo sound on AM stations, bought them expecting improved audio quality, tuned to AM stations broadcasting in one stereo standard, and heard nothing but static or monaural sound if their radio used a different standard. 5 systems existed: Motorola Sequam, Magnavox PMX, Harris, Bilar, and Kahn, Hazeltine. None were compatible. A Sequam receiver couldn't decode Magnavox transmissions. A Kahn radio couldn't process Harris signals. Broadcasters had to choose one expensive transmission system without knowing which would survive. Radio manufacturers had to design receivers around one standard, gambling that local stations would adopt the same format. The FCC refused to mandate one standard in 1982, hoping the market would choose organically. The market chose paralysis. Broadcasters didn't know which system to adopt and couldn't justify spending thousands on transmitter upgrades without consumer demand. Radio manufacturers didn't know which standard to support and couldn't build receivers without knowing what stations would broadcast. Consumers bought radios that might not work with local stations or bought nothing, waiting for clarity that never came. The 1977 Polaroid, Polavision, wasn't just instant video. It was wrong format failure when Polaroid needed movie cameras and launching a silent Super 8 cartridge system the same year VCRs recorded TV doomed it to irrelevance before it started. Families didn't need market analysis to know what value meant. They compared Polavision cameras costing $700 that recorded silent 2.5-minute cartridges requiring immediate playback on proprietary players, costing an additional $200 against VCRs, costing $1,000 that recorded hours of TV with sound and played back on any TV. Polavision offered instant viewing but no audio, no editing, no long recording time, and no ability to play back anywhere except on the specialized Polavision player. The format was fundamentally limited by design. Each Polavision cartridge held only 2.5 minutes of silent film, enough for brief family moments, but insufficient for birthday parties, vacations, or events. Cartridges cost $7 each and couldn't be reused. VHS tapes cost $10, but held 2 hours and were reusable hundreds of times. The math was obvious. Recording 30 minutes on Polavision cost $84 in cartridges alone, while one VHS tape cost $10 and recorded 120 minutes with sound. Polaroid invested $200 million developing Polavision over a decade, betting consumers wanted instant home movies like they wanted instant photos. But instant photos were unique. Instant movies were redundant when video cameras recorded longer, with sound on reusable tapes, and could be watched immediately on any TV without specialized players. The instant photo's appeal was chemical magic creating an image in 90 seconds. Instant video's appeal was seeing footage immediately that you could already see immediately with VCRs. Polaroid sold fewer than 100,000 Polavision units, despite massive marketing campaigns featuring families capturing precious moments. The product was discontinued in 1979 after just 2 years. The failure cost Polaroid hundreds of millions and damaged the company's reputation for innovation, contributing to financial struggles that eventually led to bankruptcy in 2001. Retailers liquidated Polavision inventory at deep discounts. Cameras sold for under $100. Cartridges were given away. Owners discovered their investment was worthless, and their footage was trapped in an obsolete format with no migration path. By 1985, Polavision was completely forgotten, mentioned only as a cautionary tale in business schools. By 2000, remaining units were collector curiosities worth more as artifacts of failure than as functional devices. Modern instant products didn't eliminate format misjudgment. The 1981 DeLorean DMC-12 wasn't just sports car. It was celebrity disaster when John DeLorean needed funding and building a stainless steel gull-wing car with underpowered engines, while embezzling funds, created a company that collapsed within 3 years amid cocaine trafficking arrests. Car buyers didn't need performance tests to know what disappointment meant. They saw DeLorean ads showing a futuristic brushed stainless steel car with gull-wing doors, test drove one expecting sports car performance, and discovered a Renault V6 engine producing only 130 horsepower, slower than a Honda Accord. The car cost $25,000, equivalent to $80,000 today. It was heavy, slow, handled poorly, and the stainless steel body showed fingerprints and couldn't be painted. DeLorean raised $175 million from investors and the British government to build a factory in Northern Ireland. Production began in 1981. Quality was terrible. Cars left the factory with misaligned panels, electrical problems, and mechanical failures. Dealers had to fix every car before selling it. Only 9,000 were made before the company collapsed. John DeLorean was arrested in 1982 for cocaine trafficking in an FBI sting operation, attempting to raise $24 million to save the company. He was acquitted in 1984 after claiming entrapment, but the company was already bankrupt. The factory closed in 1982. Investors lost everything. The DeLorean became famous later because of Back to the Future, 1985, which used it as a time machine. The movie made the car iconic despite its commercial failure. Today, surviving DeLoreans are collectible not because they're good cars, but because they're pop culture artifacts. By 1990, the DeLorean was a punchline and a movie prop. By 2020, DeLorean was remembered only through Back to the Future. The car's failure taught that futuristic styling can't overcome poor engineering, weak performance, and financial fraud. Modern automotive didn't eliminate celebrity car disasters. Tucker failed the same way in 1948, Fisker Karma collapsed in 2013, and Faraday Future never delivered promised cars. proving that charismatic founders with bold visions repeatedly build companies on hype rather than sustainable business models. The DeLorean proved that distinctive design and media attention can't sustain a company when the product underperforms and finances are fraudulent. It taught investors that celebrity CEOs and revolutionary promises require skepticism. And when the company collapsed, that proof was buried in bankruptcy filings. And with it, the knowledge that automotive startups fail more often than they succeed, regardless of how futuristic the concept appears. The 1992 Sony Minidisc wasn't just audio format. It was timing failure when Sony needed post-Walkman success and launching a recordable digital disc format the same year as recordable CDs, and just before MP3 players doomed it to irrelevance, despite technical superiority. Music listeners didn't need format comparisons to know what mattered. They evaluated mini-disc players costing $500 to $800 that recorded and played digital audio on 2.5-inch discs against CD players that played existing disc collections and MP3 players that held hundreds of songs. Minidisc offered no compelling advantage. Discs held 74 minutes like CDs, cost $3 each, and required Sony's proprietary 8-track compression that reduced quality. Sony positioned Minidisc as the Walkman's successor, perfect for recording and portable playback. The format technically succeeded: shock-resistant playback, recordable, rewritable, small form factor. But it arrived too late. CDs already dominated, CDR burners became affordable by 1995, and MP3s emerged in 1997, making physical media obsolete. Minidisc sold well in Japan, where Sony's influence was strong and commuters valued portable recording. But in the US and Europe, sales were minimal. Only audiophiles and Sony loyalists bought them. Music labels never fully supported the format. Pre-recorded mini-discs were limited and expensive. The format required users to record CDs to discs themselves. Sony supported mini-disc for 20 years, releasing players until 2013, but it remained niche globally. Total sales were around 1 million units in the US versus tens of millions of CD and MP3 players. By 2005, MP3 players dominated. iPod launched in 2001 and killed physical portable media entirely. Mini-disc production ended in 2013. Modern formats didn't eliminate timing failures. Microsoft Zune launched after iPod dominated, Google Glass launched before AR was practical, and both failed due to poor timing despite technical competence. The 1979 Clairol touch of yogurt shampoo wasn't just beauty product, it was packaging disaster when Clairol needed natural ingredient marketing, and putting real yogurt in shampoo bottles caused customers to taste it and hospitals to treat people who ate it thinking it was food. Shoppers didn't need warning labels to know what yogurt meant. They saw touch of yogurt shampoo in stores, read ingredients listing actual yogurt cultures, assumed it was edible because yogurt is food, and some people ate it. Emergency rooms treated patients who consumed shampoo. Parents called poison control when children drank it. The product created confusion between food and personal care. Clairol marketed the shampoo, emphasizing natural ingredients and yogurt's protein benefits for hair. Ads showed women with healthy, shiny hair. But putting real dairy yogurt in shampoo created problems. It required refrigeration, had short shelf life, and smelled like spoiled milk when old. Stores couldn't keep it cold. Bottles on shelves went rancid. The yogurt content was minimal. Enough for marketing claims, but not enough to require refrigeration labeling. Clairol didn't anticipate people would taste or eat shampoo. But the touch of yogurt name and food-like packaging created exactly that assumption, especially among children and elderly people who saw familiar food names. Media coverage turned the product into a punchline. Tonight, show jokes mocked shampoo you could eat. Consumer groups questioned why Clairol put food in non-food bottles without clear warning labels. Sales collapsed under negative publicity. Clairol discontinued Touch of Yogurt within 2 years. The failure taught that crossing food and non-food categories confuses consumers and creates liability when products look or smell like food but aren't safe to eat. The 2006 Coca-Cola Black wasn't just coffee soda. It was flavor confusion disaster when Coca-Cola needed premium positioning and combining coffee, and cola created a drink that coffee lovers hated and soda drinkers rejected within 2 years of launch. Consumers didn't need taste tests to know what wrong meant. They bought Coca-Cola Black in premium bottles costing $1.99 each, expecting either cola-flavored coffee or coffee-flavored cola, and discovered a bitter hybrid that satisfied neither craving. Coffee drinkers found it too sweet and carbonated. Soda drinkers found it too bitter and coffee-like. The product existed in the worst of both categories. Coca-Cola spent millions developing Black as a premium adult beverage, targeting sophisticated consumers who wanted energy and refreshment combined. Marketing emphasized French café culture and coffee sophistication. The drink contained coffee extract, cola, and was lightly carbonated. It was sold in glass bottles in 4-packs, costing $7 to $8. The positioning failed completely. Coffee consumers already had cold coffee drinks like frappuccinos and iced coffee from Starbucks. Energy drink consumers had Red Bull and Monster. Soda consumers had Coca-Cola. Black fit no existing consumption occasion. It wasn't breakfast coffee, wasn't afternoon refreshment, wasn't evening soda, and wasn't energy drink. Taste was the final problem. Most consumers found Black unpleasant, simultaneously too sweet and too bitter, with carbonation that felt wrong for a coffee drink. Repeat purchases were nearly zero. Retailers reduced shelf space within months. Coca-Cola launched Black in the US, France, Spain, and several other markets in 2006, and discontinued it everywhere by 2008. By 2010, Coca-Cola Black was a forgotten experiment, mentioned only in marketing case studies about failed flavor innovations. The 1989 Mattel Power Glove wasn't just game controller, it was motion control disaster when Nintendo needed accessories and licensing. A glove controller with finger sensors and motion tracking created a device that looked futuristic but responded so poorly it was unplayable. Gamers didn't need technical reviews to know what broken meant. They bought Power Gloves for $100 based on TV commercials showing kids controlling games with hand gestures, brought them home, calibrated them for 30 minutes following complex instructions, played for 10 minutes, and discovered the glove registered incorrect inputs constantly. Pointing right made characters go left. Closing fists didn't register. Opening hands triggered random actions. The Power Glove used ultrasonic sensors and flex sensors in the fingers to detect hand position and gestures. In theory, players could control NES games through natural hand movements. In practice, the sensors were too imprecise, calibration was too sensitive to room acoustics and lighting, and most NES games weren't designed for motion control. Only 2 games were made specifically for the Power Glove. Both were terrible. Mattel marketed the Power Glove heavily with the tagline, "It's so bad," meaning cool in 1989 slang. The movie The Wizard featured it prominently. Kids wanted Power Gloves because they looked futuristic. But once home, the reality of non-functional motion control destroyed any appeal. Reviews were universally negative. GamePro called it more frustrating than fun. Nintendo Power advised using regular controllers instead. Less than 100,000 units sold, despite massive marketing. Mattel discontinued it in 1990 after 1 year. Remaining inventory was liquidated at $20 each. The Power Glove became a pop culture symbol of failed 1980s tech, referenced in Regular Show, Family Guy, and dozens of YouTube reviews mocking its dysfunction. By 1995, the Power Glove was a joke. By 2010, it was an ironic collectible worth 100 plus in original packaging. Modern motion controls didn't eliminate the lesson. Sony PlayStation Move and Microsoft Kinect both launched with similar precision problems, and Nintendo's Wii succeeded only because it lowered expectations for motion control accuracy rather than promising realistic gesture recognition. The 1996 Arch Deluxe wasn't just premium burger, it was brand identity disaster when McDonald's needed adult customers and spending $300 million marketing a sophisticated burger to adults alienated families while failing to attract the upscale diners McDonald's wanted. Customers didn't need focus groups to know what McDonald's meant. They saw Arch Deluxe ads showing refined adults enjoying gourmet burgers without children, featuring the tagline, "The burger with the grown-up taste," and felt insulted. McDonald's built its empire on family dining and happy meals. Ads that explicitly excluded children and mocked kid preferences contradicted everything McDonald's represented. The Arch Deluxe featured a quarter-pound beef patty on a potato roll with peppered bacon, lettuce, tomato, cheese, onions, ketchup, and a secret mustard mayo sauce. It cost $2.89, expensive for McDonald's in 1996. The burger itself was fine, but the marketing positioned McDonald's as a place kids shouldn't go. Parents who brought families to McDonald's felt unwelcome. Adults seeking upscale dining went to actual restaurants, not McDonald's. McDonald's spent $300 million on market research, development, and advertising, the most expensive product launch in fast food history. TV ads featured children grimacing at adult food. Print ads showed sophisticated diners. Ronald McDonald was absent from all marketing. Sales were disastrous. The Arch Deluxe was discontinued in 2000 after 4 years. The failure taught that established brands can't suddenly reposition without alienating core customers. McDonald's customers wanted consistency, value, and family friendliness, not upscale exclusivity. The $300 million loss contributed to McDonald's first-ever quarterly loss in 2002. The company refocused on core menu S and family positioning afterward. By 2005, Arch Deluxe was a business school case study in brand extension failure. By 2020, it was remembered only as one of the worst product launches ever. Modern fast food didn't eliminate upscale misjudgments. Taco Bell's Cantina restaurants and Chipotle's upscale positioning succeeded, but McDonald's signature crafted line failed in 2019, proving that some brands can't escape their mass-market identity regardless of product quality. The Arch Deluxe disaster proved that brands have identities customers expect them to maintain. It taught that marketing campaigns explicitly rejecting core customers to attract new demographics alienates both groups. And when the burger was discontinued, that proof was removed from menus. And with it, the knowledge that McDonald's means family dining, and any attempt to position it otherwise will fail regardless of taste or marketing spend. The 1992 Sony Minidisc wasn't just audio format. It was timing failure when Sony needed post-Walkman success and launching a recordable digital disc format the same year as recordable CDs, and just before MP3 players doomed it to irrelevance, despite technical superiority. Music listeners didn't need format comparisons to know what mattered. They evaluated mini-disc players costing $500 to $800 that recorded and played digital audio on 2.5-inch discs against CD players that played existing disc collections and MP3 players that held hundreds of songs. Minidisc offered no compelling advantage. Discs held 74 minutes like CDs, cost $3 each, and required Sony's proprietary 8-track compression that reduced quality. Sony positioned Minidisc as the Walkman's successor, perfect for recording and portable playback. The format technically succeeded: shock-resistant playback, recordable, rewritable, small form factor. But it arrived too late. CDs already dominated, CDR burners became affordable by 1995, and MP3s emerged in 1997, making physical media obsolete. Minidisc sold well in Japan, where Sony's influence was strong and commuters valued portable recording. But in the US and Europe, sales were minimal. Only audiophiles and Sony loyalists bought them. Music labels never fully supported the format. Pre-recorded mini-discs were limited and expensive. The format required users to record CDs to discs themselves. Sony supported mini-disc for 20 years, releasing players until 2013, but it remained niche globally. Total sales were around 1 million units in the US versus tens of millions of CD and MP3 players. By 2005, MP3 players dominated. iPod launched in 2001 and killed physical portable media entirely. Mini-disc production ended in 2013. Modern formats didn't eliminate timing failures. Microsoft Zune launched after iPod dominated, Google Glass launched before AR was practical, and both failed due to poor timing despite technical competence. The mini-disc failure proved that superior technology launched at the wrong moment loses to inferior technology launched at the right time. It taught that format success requires industry support, content availability, and market timing that aligns with consumer readiness. And when Sony discontinued Minidisc, that proof was archived in discontinued product lists, and with it, the knowledge that even Sony's engineering excellence and marketing power can't force a format to succeed when better alternatives already exist or are about to emerge. The 1993 Apple Newton message pad wasn't just PDA. It was premature technology disaster when Apple needed handheld computing, and launching a $700 device with handwriting recognition that couldn't recognize handwriting created a product ridiculed in Doonesbury comics and canceled within 5 years. Users didn't need training to know what failure meant. They bought Newton message pads expecting handwritten notes to be accurately converted to text, wrote with the stylus on the touchscreen, and watched Newton interpret hello as jello and meeting as mooting. The handwriting recognition was so bad it became a national joke. Gary Trudeau's Doonesbury comic strip ran a week-long series mocking Newton's failures, cementing its reputation as unusable. The Newton cost $700 at launch, equivalent to $1,400 today. It was bulky, heavy, and required constant recharging. The handwriting recognition used neural networks, but needed training for each user's writing style. Most users gave up before completing training. Even trained, accuracy remained below 80%, making typed Palm Pilots vastly more practical. Apple marketed Newton as revolutionary, the first true handheld computer with pen input. Ads showed professionals taking notes in meetings. Reality was users entering data 3 times because recognition failed. Business customers returned Newtons in droves. Steve Jobs, who returned to Apple in 1997, immediately canceled Newton, calling it an expensive distraction. Total sales were around 200,000 units over 5 years, a commercial failure for a product Apple spent hundreds of millions developing. The Newton taught Apple hard lessons about premature technology launches. When Apple returned to handheld computing with the iPhone in 2007, it used a keyboard and touch interface instead of handwriting recognition, learning that proven input methods beat futuristic but broken alternatives. By 2000, Newton was discontinued and forgotten. By 2010, it was a collector's representing Apple's pre-Jobs failure era. Modern handhelds didn't eliminate premature AI failures. Google Glass shipped with AI features that didn't work reliably, and Siri launched with limited capability that disappointed users, proving that promising AI-driven features before the technology is ready creates the same user disappointment regardless of brand strength. The Newton message pad failure proved that revolutionary interface ideas fail when core functionality doesn't work reliably. It taught that handwriting recognition must achieve near-perfect accuracy to be useful, and anything less makes users switch to keyboards. And when Jobs canceled Newton, that proof was trashed in Apple warehouses, and with it, the knowledge that futuristic input methods can't ship until they work better than existing alternatives, not just differently. The 2001 Pontiac Aztek wasn't just crossover SUV. It was design disaster when GM needed innovation, and creating a vehicle so ugly that critics called it the worst designed car in history killed sales immediately despite practical features. Car buyers didn't need design degrees to know what ugly meant. They saw the Aztek in showrooms, a boxy crossover with mismatched body panels, plastic cladding, a two-tone paint scheme that made it look unfinished, and a front end resembling a face in mid-sneeze, and walked to other brands. Automotive journalists named it ugliest car ever made in 2001. Time magazine listed it among the 50 worst cars of all time. The Aztek was mechanically sound and practically designed. It had camping features, rear cargo area converted to a tent platform, removable cooler, air mattress storage, built-in air compressor. It was safe, reliable, and affordable at $21,000. But design killed it. Nobody wanted to be seen driving the ugliest car on the road. Pontiac expected to sell 75,000 Azteks annually. Actual sales were 27,000 in the first year and dropped annually afterward. The vehicle was discontinued in 2005 after 5 years of poor sales. Total sales were around 119,000 units, a catastrophic failure for a mass-market vehicle. The Aztek became famous posthumously when Breaking Bad, 2008-2013, featured it as Walter White's car, symbolizing his pre-meth mediocrity and poor life choices. The show rehabilitated the Aztek's image ironically. It became cool because it was uncool. By 2010, the Aztek was discontinued and forgotten. By 2015, Breaking Bad fans sought out Azteks as Collector S. Modern automotive didn't eliminate design disasters. Fiat Multipla, Nissan Cube, and Nissan Juke all launched with polarizing designs that limited sales, proving that distinctive styling can backfire when distinctiveness crosses into ugliness. The Pontiac Aztek failure proved that practical features and good engineering can't overcome terrible styling in the automotive market. It taught that visual design matters more than specs for most car buyers. And when GM discontinued it, that proof was parked in junkyards, and with it, the knowledge that cars are fashion statements as much as transportation, and ugly cars don't sell regardless of capability or price. The 1995 Microsoft Bob wasn't just software. It was condescending interface disaster when Microsoft needed user-friendly Windows, and creating a cartoon house with animated characters explaining basic computing tasks insulted users and was cancelled within 1 year. Computer users didn't need interface alternatives to know what patronizing meant. They installed Microsoft Bob, expecting easier Windows navigation, saw a cartoon house with rooms representing applications, clicked on animated assistants like Rover the dog, who explained tasks in childish language, and felt insulted. Bob treated adults like kindergartners learning to use crayons. Bob cost $100 and required Windows 3.1 or 95 plus high RAM for 1995 standards. The interface replaced the desktop with a 3D house where users clicked on objects. Click the desk to write documents. Click the calendar to check dates. Click the mailbox for email. Animated assistants offered help unprompted. Every action triggered slow animations. The interface was slower than standard Windows, consumed more memory, and added no functionality, just graphical metaphors that adults found unnecessary. Power users hated it for being slow. Novice users hated it for being condescending. Nobody wanted an animated dog teaching them to use a mouse. Media reviews were savage. PC Magazine called it annoying. Wired named it one of the worst products ever. And when Microsoft discontinued Bob, that proof was deleted from download servers, and with it, the knowledge that helping users means respecting their intelligence.